Today we are going to learn about acrylic painting techniques. I'm going to teach you about 8 techniques that you're going to use in your next project. The first technique is the water technique, and this is the way you can use your acrylic paint to look like watercolor paint. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of wet my paper a little bit, and then I'm going to water down my paint to be like watercolor, and we can just kind of push it on there. Maybe I'll add another color in there, but I won't mix them together necessarily, so they keep separate, and then we can kind of create like a drip, something like that. If you want to make something like in the water or jellyfish or something. The next thing we're going to do is called Scraffidito. Go ahead and take the time to write that down. And it's Italian for scratch, okay? So when you paint in acrylic paint, you can paint down a nice thick coat, and while it's still wet, you can create texture. This is a great way to create hair texture, animal hair texture, and things like that. You can even make long lines. You can make real crisp lines. Okay, now we're going to do the third one. This is called Scumbling, and it's kind of a blending technique. Okay, so let's start with I'm going to kind of paint in a circle, and I'm going to paint wet on wet, and I'm going to kind of blend one color into the next color. And I'm going to I'm almost dabbing. Maybe I'll go in with that, and I'm just going to kind of blend it in here. And this is great if you're making one color sort of blend into another color. So you can see that you're just very gently making it. You can do kind of mist or trees or something like that. The next one we're going to do is we're going to use a stencil. So don't forget, as you work with acrylic paints, that you can stencil with them. So you're going to take a sponge. I don't think it's very easy to stencil with a brush because it will get underneath the edges of the stencil. Remember that when we're watercoloring, we really want to try to keep the colors, make small batches. So we can kind of get some stencils. You can even stencil over another color. Let's try that. And so you can get some different things over there. The next one's kind of a fun one. It's called Splatter. I'm going to get my brush nice and wet. And this is great if you're making water and you want to make like kind of a splash, or if you want to make rocks and you want to create a lot of texture. It's a great way, and this is just like we did when we did our watercolor sample. The next one is very similar to watercolor. Also, it's called dry brush. So I want you to dip. You can dip one side and then the other side, and let's try 2 different colors here. And you want to make sure that your brush is not wet. And you're just going to use the edge of your brush, and you're going to use the texture of the brush. So I really like to use a flat brush when I use this. Try this one. And you want to kind of just use barely any And this might be if you want to do some tree shapes, so you don't want to do the leaves, but you want a kind of a shrub or a beautiful glowy something. Okay, here's glaze. So a glaze is where you paint something, let it dry, and then you paint another color on top of it thin. So here's my first color. I'm going to paint a little bit thick. We're going to let that dry. Also with lifting, you need to have a base coat. So I'm going to use white. And then I'm going to let that dry. Okay, so now it's dry, dry to the touch. So here's the glaze, where I'm going to use kind of a thin coat, and this is very similar to the watercolor. So you can see that it creates a green, but it doesn't really blend too much. This is great if you're trying to build up colors and really pay attention to light, and also you can add Scraffidito if you want to, and you can make like a different kinds of textures with it. You can add the watered down effect over it. You can even add a third color over the top and kind of get some really interesting textures. The next thing, we've painted this white, and we're going to talk about color lifting. So let's say we painted on and it's still very wet, and you're going to press down with your sponge or something, and you'll lift the paint off. This is really great if you want to make clouds and you want to get a lot of real interesting clouds, but you don't want to paint the shape of the cloud. You want to kind of let it be sort of more free form. You can use lifting, but you have to have a base coat on there first. Okay, so again, you can kind of lift off a little bit here and there, and it gives a little more of a natural look. So all of these give you different ways to add a lot of texture to your acrylic painting.